Okay, we have Tom Davis with us today. He is the candidate for 4th District of Tennessee for Congress, U.S. Congress. And Tom, it's good to have you with us today. I'm glad you've taken time out of your busy schedule to drop in on Bedford County.
Right. Well, David, I'm certainly appreciative that you allow me to come on and talk.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background, your career, your life story in a nutshell.
Okay.
How you ended up in Tennessee.
Yeah, fair enough. So I am originally from Arizona, a very small town. And in fact, I don't know, kind of amuses me. My graduating class was 28.
Wow. Okay, small town then.
So very small town. And then how I wound up in Tennessee, and I'll just kind of run the gamut of it. So I served in the Army from July of '89 until April of 14.
Right.
When I was in the Army, my job was 88 Mike, which is a motor transport operator. It's kind of a cool way, I guess, of saying truck driver.
Right.
So that's
I got
what I
you.
did.
Okay.
So a variety of duty positions while I was in, wheeled vehicle operator, training NCO, squad leader, drill sergeant, platoon sergeant, among other things. I deployed support of Operations Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Operation Joint Forge, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. And from there, I left the Army in 14. I went home to Arizona, back home, where I served as a police officer for a short period of time. 2017, I moved to Tennessee, and I did that to be closer to family. Okay. So the long and short of it is that I was divorced, and I have a daughter that my ex-wife moved to Tennessee with.
Okay.
And so she was in, I think, sixth, seventh grade, somewhere in there. So to keep her from going back and forth across the country
right.
is kind of what drove. And then really just kind of looking at it, that process, I was like, Tennessee is awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
So wound up in Warren County,
right.
And then now I'm in Morrison with my wife Cindy, and then our youngest Nicholas. Okay. And he's actually, I think we're calling it done. He'll be a senior at Warren County High School. Okay. So there, and then so that brought me to Tennessee. Since I've been here in Tennessee, I am an active member. I'm currently the quartermaster at VFW Post 5064 in McMinnville. And I'm also, I'm a member of American Legion Post 173, also in McMinnville. And that's kind of where I'm at. This journey started really last year. And I had been kind of looking around or, becoming more involved in the process and my responsibilities as a citizen. Voting and just contacting representatives, and then was actually I do a lot of firearms training.
Right.
In fact, I have a YouTube channel. One of the things I do
okay.
is I'll go to the school and then I will do a review of the school. So I'll attend the training, and then just kind of some ins and outs. Kind of my line of thought is if you want to know the drills, go to the school and figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm just so that particular channel is just the emphasis of maximizing your training time. So was doing that, and then so as part of that, going to the schools, one of the instructors had said to the effect of, if you are standing around, if you find yourself standing around thinking somebody should do something, that somebody is you.
Right.
So we tend to like to stand around and rail against things, but in order to affect change, you have to increase what you're doing, or if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results. So if you're not getting the right results, do something different.
Right.
So that process, I was asked to give the speech at the Memorial Day ceremony in Warren County that we do at the airport.
Right.
The VFW was responsible for it, and they asked me, and I was honored to do it. And so after that speech, and you can do this a couple different ways. I chose to come up with and deliver my own speech, or you can, the VFW has like some canned speeches,
right.
if you will.
Yeah.
You can modify them a little bit for the occasion. I completely gave my own, and in that I laid out where there are failures along the way: the White House, the Congress, the press, and then we the people. And laid out some ways how better to honor our veterans who have, made the ultimate sacrifice
right.
for this nation, than to, lay out the problem and the solution. Kind of how I've been, if we're going to start talking problems, let's start talking solutions
Sure.
also. And I can think of a couple different instances that just pop out where guys are, like, oh, here's the problem, and have not only do they not want to present a solution, but don't want to participate in it. There's
Sure.
like if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, and just stop it. So anyway, laid out some methods where we could do that. And after that speech, was asked, did I ever thought of running for public office? And I said no. So then, like I said, it kind of stacked on the year. And then, I am a Christian. And so I kind of looked at it and could see a calling and a shaping of my life to prepare me for this.
Right.
So, just kind of stepped in and then I started looking around like, okay, where do I fit in? Where can I best serve? And as I started looking at the different levels and different people representing me, I got to the 4th Congressional District and said, I think I can do better.
Right.
And I believe I've been shaped to do better. And part of what we have amongst some of the other stuff we have going on is a lack of leadership in Washington, D.C. And we have a lack of wanting to actually stand on some principles. So I said, all right, here I am, send me.
Okay.
And so there we go. So I guess that brings us to like where
you're at now. So you've got August 1st.
Yes.
Primary.
August 1st.
Republican primary.
Is the Republican primary. That's actual voting day. Early voting is the 12th through the 27th.
Right.
So if you're going to do the early voting thing, find that. And then, And so it is I am doing the primary because I typically will describe myself as a Christian, as a conservative, as a combat veteran who is very concerned about the state of the nation, and then as a Republican.
Right. Okay.
So, just kind of as my mind works, and I was like looking at things. One, I'm like, okay, I'm not a Democrat, so I can't even do that. And then I considered running as an independent, but that's not a success story.
Right.
If it is, it typically does not end in success.
Right.
So then came back and I looked at the kind of at how this primary has gone. Last time there was nobody even bothered showing up to give citizens an alternative.
Right.
So to even consider. And then it's just been it's currently held by Congressman Scott Desjardins, who was first elected in 2010.
Right.
And has really, there's been a couple times where it was, maybe, a little bit of contention within it, but other than that, we've had no choice. And then kind of what I'm learning is that the system is set up though that one, it's an incumbent protection racket, which, okay, you figure out the rules of the game and then you play it. And then, but it's, so it's just kind of set up like that.
Sure it is.
And then we get comfortable and then but the other part of it is the system is such that it allows for some political cover. So in one of the instances, I heard it said that it's hard to get right of Congressman Desjardins. And if you kind of dig down into some of the votes, I'm like, it's really not that
hard,
not
is
that
it?
hard.
If you're conservative, you're probably to the right side.
Yes, and some votes I will typically look at or have seen really that I have found decided to highlight starting in December of last year was the National Defense Authorization Act.
Right.
And my biggest issue with that, well, the two issues. One is that, and I'll front load this just because I don't have to talk about it a whole bunch, but the first one is we were given a yes vote from our representative, and the reasoning behind it was a 5% pay raise. And I'll get to the reason here, but it just irritates me to no end when politicians will use service members as a crutch for bad legislation.
Right.
Within this legislation, the National Defense Authorization Act was taxpayer funding for our gender affirming care to include the surgeries, which it's an elective procedure. And I will tell you as a, almost 25-year veteran that it would just, it is a detractor.
Sure.
It does not enhance our readiness as a nation. And in fact, it will detract from it because now you've got a person that is going to be non-deployable. Best guess I can come up with, looking into the subject itself, I just kind of came up with a year, because I just can't find any like definitive answer. It's going to be this long. But I know it's going to, with a surgery, there's going to be recovery. There's going to be, procedures ahead of it, whatever, the drug regimen is that prepares them for it. So I'm figuring about a year. And now within the squad, I think of it in Army terms, but, it can apply across the branches. But so, for me, as I left the Army as a platoon sergeant, now I've got a person in a slot that is not able to do the job. And so that, down to that squad leader, who now all those soldiers in that squad now have to pick up the slack.
Right.
So, and not to mention, and that's outside of any type of belief system you may have. So that piece of legislation, it irritated me to no end to get a yes vote on that. And in essence, that 5% pay raise, all said and done after taxes, if you average it out, is going to be, I'll go high and say, $25 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can keep that. You can keep that for the headache it's going to cause me as a leader, and just within there. So that bit of legislation, and even there's a couple other ones. One is the FISA, which he did vote no on the final product. And the FISA is the legislation that was used in 2016 that the FBI abused and used to spy on Donald Trump as a candidate.
Right.
So he voted yes to bring it to the floor. I never even would have brought that mess to the floor, because it's garbage. And the continuing to allow the FBI to have this it's like giving a toddler a knife and sending them out into the playground. Sure. It's dangerous for all of us. Yeah. So that bit of legislation, and then more recently was the yes vote to change the definition of anti-Semitism, which is a lot of us out there, you understand that they put names on this stuff that is very disingenuous.
Sure it is.
The Inflation Reduction Act. But in this legislation, it sounds good. Like, all right, we're supporting Israel. Horrible idea. It would have made it illegal for us as citizens to criticize the Israeli government.
Right.
Which makes no sense. It would have made passages in the Bible illegal. So that one, and then even on that, so the Ukraine funding, we did get no's on that, but this is the political cover that I talk about.
Gotcha.
So they even got me to begin with, because I'm like, all right, they split it all up and they voted individually. It's called the MIRV. It was a multiple integrated rocket reentry vehicle, and it's actually from a missile that we have.
Wow.
Is what they. So they split it all apart, and it didn't matter. So say the Ukraine funding would have failed in the House, it was still going back together and going to the Senate as a complete package. So I'm like, so he did vote no on all those, but then there was another piece of legislation that we're not hearing about, and that was HR 8038. And that was, so we have frozen Russian assets.
Yes.
And so this bit of legislation allows us to seize those assets and bring them to the United States. But then what we're doing is we're pushing them to Ukraine to fund their rebuilding. And I'm like, I don't think we should probably getting into that business. It's assuming that Ukraine is going to win, which I'm not convinced that they will, unless we actually put American troops on the ground.
Right. Well, since you're bringing this up, I had this on one of the things I was going to ask you about the situation in Ukraine. What's really going on?
Money laundering.
I was hoping you'd say that, because that's just been the suspicion of a lot of people. All this money going there and it ends up somewhere else. A little bit's left.
Yeah, and there's zero accountability for it.
Right.
And we've already seen a couple instances of it. We can show where it's been diverted to can't even call his name right now. These guys irritate me. But the Zelensky, that's the guy.
Sure.
Him and his cronies, and it's been diverted. It's absolutely been taken away from what it's supposed to do.
One of the most corrupt nations in the world.
Yeah.
And we're sending money. That just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, here's your check. Do what you want. So that, to me, it's money laundering. And part of this, you look at what we're doing there and the presentation of why. And it's like, oh, stop Putin.
Yeah.
And if you say let's not send money to Ukraine, people are like, you're pro-Russia.
Pro-Russia, yeah.
Which no, let's stop the madness.
Yeah.
But so Russia may indeed have designs on the rest of Europe, but do they have the capability to do it? The answer to that is no. I mean, they haven't even been able to take over Ukraine in 2 years.
Right.
So
yeah.
are they really a threat? And what is, what? There's no sense. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And
So how would you unwind something like this? How do you get these guys to go to the table and talk, work out a deal, break up the land like they can both live with? How do you get that from the United States in a position like you would have? What could you do?
I don't. My concern is not necessarily that. My concern is we're sending this money there
Right.
and no return on the investment. We're getting there's no strategy other than we have to throw money at it.
Right.
We have to throw money at it, and that's a horrible idea. Let's stop throwing the money at it, and then work from there. Because I mean, this money is going to secure their borders, and ours are wide open. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Our border, there's not a lot of money being thrown at that.
Right.
It's being thrown out of our country when it should be thrown right to that southern border. Give me your take on that.
So, and this comes to some of that leadership within the Republican Party up there, and really to grow the Freedom Caucus, because these are the ones that are truly, I think, wanting to stop the spending and direct it to where it goes. So that's where it comes in. And I heard our representative talking about Mike Johnson, and without kind of pushing into that, but it was in reference to the motion to vacate. And his comment was nobody wants to pick up the gavel and be in charge. To me, that's a problem. That's a problem. And just from my mindset and my past and what I've done, it's like, I'll do it.
Sure.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, put me in charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's because it's a mindset problem we have up there. And they're just, I don't think a lot of them there are truly trying to solve any of the problems.
Right.
And so this is what we need is a mindset up there that I want to fix this. I want less government. That was the whole intent of this exercise to begin with, was limited big government, more self-governance.
Sure.
So, but to solve that's where it comes in is some leadership up there, and then holding that line like we just threw with the funding. And that's one of the levers that the House has,
right,
is that funding. And so instead of just caving and throwing all this money outside of our country, there's a bill over there right now that the House did, the House Bill 2. That one, it's already a package, and all they had to do was just not bring this stuff up and tell the Senate, there you go, it's done. But we get this thing about shutting the government down, and which shut it down.
Honestly, I wish they would shut down. Just get out of our way for a minute.
Yeah. Well, and that's
as a citizen,
Yeah, and so that's they put this fear on us, right? Oh, we're going to shut the government down. It's going to be bad.
Yeah.
It's not going to be bad for anybody other than
them.
those. Yeah. Well, and not even in Congress, they're going to get paid. It's not going to affect them at all.
What the last time we had to shut down, we had the parks, U.S. parks. Some of the people that were attending them weren't working, and
it comes out to about 17% of the government, and it's these non-essentials.
Right.
Military is still going to military. Our elected representatives are still going to get paid. It's not going to stop the nation, but they use it as a tool to scare us. And so everyone's like, "Hey, get a thing done." It's like, no. Yeah. And they're already setting the conditions now for another continued spending resolution.
Well, let's talk about spending, because that leads right into our economy. Yep. Right now, people are struggling with the inflation that we've had for the last 3 years. It's put some people that are on a fixed income in a quagmire. They either have to pay for medicine or pay for food, and it's hard for them. So what's your take on the way our economy is going due to the inflation and the overspending? I'm sure this is where you might lead to, but just what do you think the answer is?
So, and one thing with this we have to understand is that our government created this problem. So are they the best venue to fix the problem? I would say no. And we can't, because I do get asked, especially like about Social Security and some of these things. You can't just I'll say yoink, I guess. You can't just yoink the rug or pull the rug out from underneath people. So there has to be a method, and that method is getting the government out of it. And how we solve that is cut out our federal government, the bureaucrats. Just streamline it. In addition to the federal aid that is going overseas, stop it. The analogy is the airplane that is depressurized. You've got to put your own mask on first before you help somebody else. So us, sending all this money to Ukraine, to even Israel, to Taiwan, we're doing it at our own detriment, and it will fail. There's no other way around it. It will fail. So that's how you get some of that stuff back, and you get the federal government out of the business of regulating so far down into our lives that you can't innovate. You can't run a business. It is super hard to start up and be in compliance and run a business. Get the federal government out of the way. And we're even seeing now with regulation. The EPA came out, and now they're telling us again with how many parts per million for exhaust, which you got to kind of think that through too. Why are we not looking on the front end also? If we're going to regulate, they're like, okay, you have to make vehicles that get 50 miles to the gallon. Doesn't matter what they burn.
Right.
But all we're worried about is that other end, and they regulate to now now the manufacturer is going to have to come up with do something different, or however they manage it, so there's less emissions.
Right.
And and that's so get the government out of it, and we should be good stewards.
Right.
And that's where people get wrapped up, like, you don't care about the environment. No, we should be good stewards, but we're only attacking these problems one way.
Right.
And there's like the expression is more than one way to skin a cat. Not that I've ever skinned a cat. But
All right.
So that's to me that we need to get the federal government out of things and let states manage at that end, and down to us as the individual citizen. I don't need the federal government to tell me I should be wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
Exactly.
Whether it's better or not or safer is up for debate, but for the federal government to mandate a manufacturer that you have to put this ding 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 in there,
right,
to get me to comply, it's ridiculous. So
let's talk about Israel. You mentioned a little bit earlier our funding there, the situation with Israel and Hamas. How do you see that playing out, and what are your thoughts on? You mentioned funding. We should probably back off the funding. Give me your take on that whole situation and where you would stand on it.
So I'm back to stopping our this foreign aid. The best thing we can do for Israel is to get out of their way.
Right.
What we are doing, and irritated me no end. We built up here to shuttle stuff to the Gaza Strip. It's like it's a siege in essence is what we have going on.
Right.
Israel is now breaching the walls and going in, and they should. That's on them to how they're going to execute their own battle plan. For us, get out of their way and quit trying to tell them what to do. All we should do is back up, let them. Everyone else in the region, if you thinking about jumping in, don't. Because we have their back. But as far as and funding both sides, it's like pick a side.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't. And this is so. I in the Army we say break it down Barney style, which is how I like to do. Is like just in as simplest terms as we can. And this is like dealing with a bully, and you're the guy that's getting picked on. You're his friend, but you're working with the bully too. You're like, hey man, he's got lunch money today.
Yeah.
And then, you're funding both sides of this operation, and it's a horrible idea. So that to me, that's stop all that funding. Let Israel do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And even now that with the UN, that's another one. these guys just came out talking about we're going to, arrest warrants for,
Netanyahu
and the
and
whatever,
Hamas leaders. Yeah.
Like, and get out of the dang UN. Those guys are about useless in my opinion.
You're not kidding.
So that's
well, speaking of that, this goes into this World Health Organization treaty that comes up May 27th. They're trying to push countries to give up some of their sovereignty so they can control health issues like COVID-19 and want to control the world with it. And it sounds like Biden wants to sign on with that, or there's a push from somewhere that is trying to get him to sign some away our sovereignty. How do we pull back from that type of stuff or push back from it and from being an elected representative up there? How would you vocally and physically push back from that from a seat like you're running for? I mean, what would your role be in saying no to that?
It comes back to the Constitution. That's not that's not within his authority to do. And there's other items we need to go back. And this is part of how we fix the problems of getting the federal government out, is not necessarily new legislation, is going back and looking at the legislation we currently have and cleaning it up and clarifying. Because what you'll hear is, again, and I like using the ATF as an example because they do it all the time. And now coming out with a new regulation to, in essence, backdoor or put in a universal background check, trying to make all of us, even it's like, hey, you thought about one time like selling, a rifle, you're a dealer.
Yeah.
And so now we can prosecute you for this, which is horrible. And then they flip flop all the time with stuff, the pistol brace. So how do we fix that? We come back to the 1934 National Firearms Act, 1968 Gun Control Act. Those two we get rid of. I mean, there's no need for that mess. If you kind of run the history on it, it came into being by default. The guy that was, it went to the Supreme Court, and the guy that was, brought it up didn't show. Yeah. So the Supreme Court's like, yep, all right, let's do the thing. And so now we have the ATF regulating, and so, and then also within the wording of legislation, the, baseball term is, tie goes to the runner. So if there's questions, that agency takes no action, but they refer it back to the legislative branch where it came from. So, originated out of the House, bring it to the House, we came out of the Senate to the Senate, and they clarify it, and it goes through the process again. Not just the executive branch now gets to, arbitrarily make up some stuff because they don't like gas stoves.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Some of the stuff is just, I mean, it's comical. Some of the things that they're coming out with.
And that's, and the, like I said, the answer is, it's got to start somewhere. Me as one representative, and this is the stuff I'm hearing out of the 4th Congressional District, is I'm not too far off from what, the majority of us out here are wanting.
Right.
And so, but what I do is I take that vote up there, but then the background of getting after it. And I look at this more as a deployment. And kind of when I was in the Army, how I looked at the deployments is I would much rather go to another country, another nation, and engage the enemy versus here where I know people.
Exactly.
And this is, I mean, not that maybe you could make the comparison that DC is the enemy.
Yeah.
In fact, Congressman Mark Green talked about that the fight is with DC and not in DC. When he had said he wasn't going to run, but then stayed in it. But I look at it the same way. This is me, part of a two-front war. One here in Tennessee, our legislators here have to be bucking up to the federal government.
Right.
But then we have a way to send somebody to Washington D.C. that's going to take that fight there.
Right.
And same mindset. I would rather go there and do it than have to play defense back here.
Yeah.
And try and, am I going to comply? Am I not going to comply? Let's just go there and peel this stuff back.
Right.
Back to, kind of the overall intent. I'm responsible for me. And, and then we can scale it out and go from there.
I know you're a big Second Amendment guy.
Yes.
We know that. You've already pretty much let that be known. I want you to talk a little bit about that. And also, our religious freedoms protection. I know you're big about that as well. As we close out, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about those two, and then just wrap things up as to how you want to move forward to win this seat, and how people can get involved.
Okay. Yeah, for the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment is only an illustration, and it's laid out there specifically on its own for us to have the ability to resist tyranny.
Right.
That's what it's for. Now we get the added benefit of I can use it for my own personal defense as well, but and so that's how we take some of this back. That one in particular, the 1934 National Firearms Act, 1968 Gun Control Act. We pull those back. The rest of it, to me, kind of falls in place because it gets rid of all this arbitrary regulation. They've got no business doing this. So, and then you look at the legislation through the eyes and the lens of the Constitution.
Right.
They knew going in that this redefining anti-Semitism was an assault on the First Amendment, our freedom of speech.
Right.
So why would you vote yes to something like that? And you call it out, and you call it out loudly that this is what's going on. And kind of what I see a difference in the representative we have now, and what I will do is report back on what is going on in these bills, and I'm spelling out ahead of time a set of principles that I will vote on.
Sure.
And if I'm outside of that, I need to explain it, and I will even explain within. But if it's outside the Constitution, the answer should be no. It doesn't matter what is in it. How that's the path to get us to these horrible places is for your safety, it's
Sure.
for the kids.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter what side is using this phrase. You better pay attention when they're talking about it's for your safety, it's for the kids, it's for
Exactly.
No, the liberty is dangerous.
Yeah.
And living under that is dangerous, and we have responsibilities for it. And there are some other, there are some responsibilities on the government for protection, but federally, quit doing what you're doing that's outside of what's laid out in the Constitution to do.
Sure.
So that's on really our rights in general, but our and the religious freedoms go in the same.
Sure.
And we have gotten to a point now where we've been hammered so long with this separation of church and state that we have allowed it to come to a point where like we're going to remove the 10 Commandments from courthouses and what that meant was we are not going to establish a religion for the nation. However, we are founded as on Christian principles, and you're free to go do your thing, but these are the values of this nation, we as a whole, and that is wrapped into that are our 10 Commandments are the Christian values in the Bible. So that we have to remember that, and then and fight it that way. And then for me, and how people can get involved, call a friend, let them know we got a choice this time. I'm on Facebook, Tom Davis for Congress. I am on YouTube, Tom Davis TN4. Have videos up answering questions that I get specifically like email or through YouTube, or through questions there, or out as I'm visiting people. Instagram, I'm on there also, Tom Davis TN4. My website, thomasedavisforcongress.com. And so tell people about it. Jump onto my Facebook is where I do a lot of stuff. My schedule, where I'm going, what I'm doing, where people can come out and actually meet me and vet me as a candidate. And if they so choose, then tell other people about me.
And then August 24th,
and
August 1st,
then show up on August 1st.
Yeah.
Yes, because I've had to make that explanation too. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
There's folks out there that don't know the primary system, and they need to show up.
A lot of people,
August.
I've seen it happen. They'll wait for the general election to come around.
Yeah.
Wait, what happened?
Yeah,
my candidate's gone. Your candidate got primaried out.
Yeah,
and this is a big day, August 1st.
It is,
and it's should be a pretty easy decision, but people go out and they tell what they are. We know what your other candidates that are opposing you, where they stand. We've seen it in action for those 14 years from the incumbent.
Yep.
And you're where you're located. You're centrally located in the 4th district as well. Yep. So that's you can get to all your folks, all your constituents
to get around. Yeah. And that's what and what we don't have now is our representative in the district when he comes back. Right. And for me, I'm like, at least quarterly, I should, figure out a way if I can't attend, the GOP meetings. And I would actually think outside of that, between that and because each county, I don't know each, but most of them will have, the Republican Party and also the Democratic Party. I think after election, I owe it to them too, to, show up at their meetings. Sure. So they can, they can talk.
Yeah, you're representing them all.
Yeah, that's you're representing everybody.
That'd be a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. But so to attend those meetings or outside of those meetings, somewhere in the district quarterly, I should be able to figure out hey, here, come see me. Sure, this is where I'll be. So,
well, Tom, it's awesome to be able to sit down with you and just hear your story, get some of your thoughts, and I know the people here in Shelbyville and Bedford County appreciate you coming down and sitting with us. And that's a message directly to them. And we'll be able to share this with everybody soon. And thanks for sitting down again.
Yeah, David, I appreciate your time and allowing me the time to come and talk and introduce myself.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.